Hi everybody, welcome to this session. So I will present you the different aspects of iTop. There is different parts. First, I will talk about what we call the service CRM that allow you to document your environment, your customers, and how you deliver the services. I will talk about the CMDB and all the part of your IT with impact analysis, data synchronization, and so on. Then I will talk about the most important, maybe, all the processes, incident management, request fulfillment, and so on. And the last two parts will be about how we can extract data and build report from iTop, and how we can adapt iTop to your processes, the way you work. I will explain that using the ITSM Designer, which is a SaaS service we provide to help in customizing iTop. So to start, I will talk about what we call in iTop the organizations that allow you to document more or less all the actors that interact with the IT department. So it could be your department. So in my example, it's demo. It could be the IT department. It could be your customers. If you are a service provider, customer 1, customer 2, as well as your business partners, Amazon Web Services, IBM, whoever that help you to deliver your services. So those organizations are using iTop to create silos, separate data, allow access to some data or not. Once we have done this, we have, I would say, the different contacts we interact with. So in the contact, we have, of course, people, like here, different people belonging to the different organizations, as well as the different teams that are used in your environment to deal with your ticket, of course, like the help desk here, but as well, for example, community of users and so on. So here I have a given team, for example, which is the help desk. So if I go back to the different contacts, the persons are identified contacts. They have or not a login in iTop. So if I look at this person, Anna Agatha Christie, this person has different informations here. You can define, and we will see later on that we can customize the model to add more or less information. We try to put the most important, like the name, the first name, the manager who is responsible for managing these people, which is very useful in the approval process, the email for notifications, the picture to identify people, and you can add as many characteristics as you need. Then we have the location that are useful as well to identify where are the different configuration items, where are the people. So here I have three locations that are in France. And if I go to a locations, I can see the different contacts that are located on these locations, okay, as well as the different devices, physical racks, servers, switches, and whatever that is located on this environment. And what's really important in iTop, we have for each element what we call the activity panel that allow you to track who had made what, when on the element. So of course, we track when it had been created, when we made modifications, either relationships or characteristics like the address. So this is kept forever, and we will see later on how we can use it on the ticketing system. But it's very useful to know what happened in the past, and it's not representing a lot of data in the database. For customers that are using iTop since 10 years, we may have to purge those data, but it's not so often. Once we have documented, I would say, our different entities, who are the contact and what are the team that deliver the services and so on, we can go to the service management part, so the service CRM, where we will document different things. First, we will document what we call the service catalog. So service families, service and service subcategories. There is 3 levels that track what you are able to propose to the end users or the customers. So in my example here, I have different services that are grouped by service, okay, account management, computer and peripheral hardware management, and so on. It's whatever you want. And all the actions I can do. For example, I can provide a new laptop. I can do troubleshooting on computer and peripherals. And as you can see, the sub-level, service subcategory, as a type, so we can track automatically if what is requested is an incident or a service request. If I look at an example like, for example, this one, I have different characteristics. I know who's the provider of this service. iTop is multi-provider, so if you have different entities in your company that provide services, they can manage their own catalog. And you will see later on that we can track rules like business rules, like the approval process rules for a given service. So we will define who is allowed to approve and what happens. Once we have defined what we can provide in iTop, we will define as well the SLAs and all the engagements we have towards our customers. So we can define different SLAs. In my example, I have the basic and the standard SLA. And what is an SLA in iTop? An SLA in iTop is a list of metrics, what we call the service level target, SLT, that will allow you to measure activities on your ticket. So by default, we have 2 types of metrics: the time to own, which is the time between the creation and when we assign the ticket to an agent, and the time to resolve, which is the time spent to resolve an incident or a service request. And it's defined by priority, by request type. And so you can define, for example, that you have 30 minutes to deal with an high priority incident and 5 minutes to deal with a critical service request. Of course, here we just are using minutes for the purpose of the demo, but it can be set by hours. Once we have defined the SLAs, we can define what we call the coverage window. So we can manage several coverage windows in iTop, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 24 hours by 7, etc., etc. So a coverage window is a virtual calendar over a week where you can define a time zone. So for example, from 8 to 6, 8 to 6. And for example, if I edit this one, I can change the behavior and say, okay, on Friday, we stop working at 2 o'clock and from, for example, 2 to 6. Okay, so you can have a continuous period or non-continuous period if you want. And then once I know how I deliver my services, I can define in the service management part what we call the customer contract. So the customer contract will allow you to define for each, I would say, entities, whether it's an internal department or a customer, what services they can request. So here I have different contracts with different entities. If I look at this one, I can have the start date, the end date. Those information are informational by default. What's really important is to look at which services are provided. And you can see that this customer has several services with different SLAs. So you can define the SLA by service and different coverage window. So depending on the service, it could be during office hours or 24 hours by 7. Once this is done, I have more or less all the information to manage the end user request. What you can do as well in the service CRM is to manage provider contract. So in my example, I have one provider contract. So the provider contract allows you to track information regarding the service provider that help you to deliver the service. So it's mainly informational, but here I can see that I have a AWS cloud support from that time to that time. So we are a little bit over. And the SLA is 2 hours. I can define as well the service hours. So that's for information, but it can help you to track the activity of your different partners, which contract you have to renew and so on. And to, I would say, globally look at the service CRM, we have dashboards that give you an overview. So for example, here I have a dashboard with all my different elements, which customer contract I have to renew if I'm a service provider, for example, and which provider contract I have to renew. Keeping in mind that those dashboards can be customized user by user directly in iTop if we want.